Welcome to the Fit Dads podcast with me, Mr. Laryngitis, Brad Thompson, and with Mr. High Rocks, Ryan Dutton.
Mr. High Rocks now?
Yeah.
Is that my new label?
That's it, mate. That's your new label. Today, Ryan, we're hopefully going to go through some bit of gym myth busting. I feel like there's a lot of unspoken things in the fitness industry or overly spoken things in the industry that we probably want to get to the bottom of and clear up. Give people some clarity.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Before we do, mate, how have you been?
Good, mate. Yeah, not too bad. I guess the big news was me and Harlow did our first DIY project.
Oh, nice.
Have you done some stuff DIY-wise with Ted? Have you got involved?
My father-in-law has. I'm not the best at DIY.
Okay.
So, I try and stay clear of that stuff where I can. But,
I haven't got a big toolbox downstairs.
No, I mean, that's a very loaded question, mate. Mate, I mean,
you can answer that off podcast.
I'll answer that off podcast. But no, in terms of that, mate, what have you been up to?
So ever since Harlow's born, she's had my old office. So I've had to move my office around a few times. So it's been everywhere, and I bought these it's like a side cabinet, chest of drawers things. So we built that together just to organise everything. And it was one of those things when I bought it, I genuinely thought, this isn't going to last. She's going to be here for 2 seconds, get bored, then want to go downstairs. But I mean, you just make a game out of it. So there was different pieces that I needed for different components. She had all the box in front of her with all the screws. And those look like wooden circular bits that connect into...
Like a dowel.
Yeah, dowel, that's right, yeah. So I just made a game of it. I was like, I need one of these. She's like, cool. I need 2 of this one. And then she was like, 1, 2. So she was like counting. It was like just getting her brain ticking a little bit. And fair play, she probably stood there for 45 minutes before it was like, right, I want to watch dinosaurs on TV now.
So that's a fair trade. Yeah.
But I was impressed. She did really well. And she's going, Daddy's building. It was nice. It was cute. Yeah,
that is cute.
Good to kind of get her involved in that stuff because I think she's at that age now where she's just, her mind's a sponge. She's learning things and every time she sees it now in my office, she goes, Dad, are we building? I'm like, next time we'll get some other stuff, we'll do some more building, don't worry. So nice moment this week.
I feel like you've summed it up nicely there, like you turned it into a game, which I feel like it's the way to get anyone to do anything.
It's just the only way to grab their attention, let's be honest. It's like they had that squirrel moment, and as soon as they see a squirrel, they're off.
Yeah.
And it's just it's nice to get them involved in things for sure.
Yeah, Ted's got like a wooden toolbox set, and the hammer in that is just terrifying because if he decides he's going to hammer something, like that's a hard hammer, even though it's made out of wood.
So is it a wooden one? Well, that would be hard then. You'll be able to nail some stuff with that.
Yeah, 100%. So
I thought you were going to say plastic ones.
Oh, no, he's got a full wooden one now. So thank you to whoever bought Ted that.
I've got images of you now sat on the sofa and him just whacking your head.
Honestly. But my father-in-law's a joiner, so he loves like anything DIY stuff. I say he loves it, he does it. And Ted just loves getting involved. So that's the only time that he'll really do it. Whereas my DIY projects are few and far between.
Do you know, I think I've had this a few times. I mean, my DIY skills are okay, but I can imagine if it's your job and you spend all day, every day doing it, and you've got something that's very mandatory for you, and you see someone doing it, and you're like, just give me that hammer, mate. I'm just going to do it myself.
100%. They call it like a busman's holiday, don't they?
What's that?
Yeah, this where so if you drive buses, odds are if you go away on holiday, you're going to be the designated driver.
Right.
Because you drive for a living. So when they say busman's holiday, it's like, oh, here we go.
I think, I can see that as well because it's just your job. You expect it to kind of like pull you weight. Same way if anyone comes to us and or our friends or family and they're looking to get in shape, we're the go-to men, aren't we? If we're in the room and you're around the table, you're getting peppered with questions. And there is that thing of like, I do this for a job as well, I talk about this all day, every day. And we love it for sure. But there's also... you need time away from those conversations.
And I feel like there's some of the best conversations. We get some interesting questions because I've always said this, PTs live in a bit of a bubble where like we get the reps in terms of dealing with problems and stuff, but we have people approach us who are probably at that stage of change where they're ready to change. Whereas there's people who are just, they're pre-contemplating, do you know what I mean? And they'll ask really vague questions or like, oh, what are carbs like? Or like really random stuff like that. So I feel like today's episode is going to dive into that, definitely.
It's those very open-ended questions and the ones that like, I could spend the next 2 hours explaining this to you. Like, are carbs good for you?
Great.
Heads in hands, you're thinking, how long have you got? Like, I could say the short answer, the long answer. short answer probably won't give you the answers you need.
I feel like we can signpost them to this podcast now.
Probably, yeah.
That's the plan.
I'll send you a link, mate.
Saving us from family gatherings.
Go on then, let's get straight into these myth-busting ones. What's your first one?
Let's do it, mate. Do you know what? Should we start off with carbs? Because my thought is with gym myth-busting, I've put no carbs before Marbs, because I feel like that was a thing back in the day, and I feel like people have still latched onto that. What, did you get many questions about carbs?
Yeah, loads. I think I've got my own ideas around carbs and how I like to program them into people's nutrition and my own. I think the no carbs thing is a good way of just cutting out calories, let's be honest. That's the bottom line is it's just taking out one of your main food groups, and by nature you will consume less doing that. But generally in my own training and with the clients, I like to program them around training more. So pre and post training is probably where the most time we'll have carbs. I'm also a massive fan of no carbs in the morning. It's a big thing of mine. I just think from personal experience and working with clients, we've seen people adapt better to burning fat as a main fuel source by doing this. If you're having carbs in lunch and evening meal, your body will use that for sure. And it's not, I guess it's a kind of, you could say it's a kind of part keto technique. But even just waking up in the morning and not filling your body with sugars and carbs, it's amazing what that does for like cognitive ability and your body's ability to wake up first thing after an 8-hour sleep looking for something to burn, and you give it fats as the main fuel source. Your body goes, okay, let's burn these fats, and then throughout the day it gets a little bit more efficient at burning fats as its main fuel source, even if you do give it carbs. So I think that that's one of my protocols around carbs.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's a really good protocol, because you mentioned it there. Like if you want someone who's wanting to drop body fat, odds are it's a way of keeping the calories down, because a lot of nice tasty things are carbs, and we need to be aware of that. And odds are the amount of toast that people eat, the amount of biscuits, all the stuff where you think, if you can actually limit your carbs, it's probably going to give you that leaner look for numerous reasons. So I'm really fascinated by the full word of carbohydrates. So that second part of the word hydrates, when you can actually retain water, retain glycogen in your muscles, that's ultimately what spikes the scale weight. And you'll probably see this if people don't eat carbs very often, or they go through a bit of a restriction with them, the scale weight will probably drop, just because they're not retaining as much water, they're not retaining as much what you call glycogen in their muscles. So it fascinates me, just the way that you can manipulate scale weight from just water and actual carbs itself. It fascinates me.
And based on how your body responds to carbs, sometimes can dictate how much water you intake as well. And having this chat with a client this morning, he said that his body can fluctuate. He's a big bloke, carries a lot of muscle mass, and he says based on the amount of carbs he's had in his week or his day, he can fluctuate half a stone sometimes. And half a stone is huge. Imagine if I think about some of the kind of quite sensitive women I've coached, and if their scales have gone up half a stone just from the amount of carbs and water they were carrying, they'd pull their hair out. So it's having a bit of clarity on that and understanding why you're gaining weight, and not just, getting yourself into a corner and throwing your toys out, which I've seen a lot of people do.
It's the classic restriction before you go on holiday, and then you go to like a week or 2 weeks all inclusive, and you come back and you've put on that half a stone. It's probably not body fat, is it?
No.
It's the water weight, it's the glycogen that your muscles have just soaked up.
Yeah.
And that fascinates me, because there's a lot of benefits to actually, from a training perspective, performance-based, to having those carbs before you train. Just gives you that instant energy, and your brain loves it as well. Like this is where we're probably a bit different, because if I don't have carbs, noticeably, I am slower cognitively.
In the morning? Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'm a bit of a weirdo like that, where
I think it's training. I think it's all adaptation. The body will adapt to whatever energy source you give it. So I always think back to when I used to be like probably 100 kilos plus. I was really on this like big bulk, definitely carrying a lot more body fat, trying to consume 5,000 calories plus a day. I would have this shake in the morning where it was like this is a long time ago, by the way, before a bit of bro science in there, and I'd be mass gainer. Do you remember the mass gainer? They still do them, don't they? The mass gainer protein powder.
1,000 calorie shakes.
This was well over 1,000. This was like 1,500. Yes, I would have like 1 or 2 scoops of this mass gainer, which is obviously protein and carb. It's almost like a little bit of a meal in itself. Then I'd throw like 150 grams of oats in there. I'd get peanut butter, coconut oil. I'd just pack as many calories into this as I could. Spinach, blend it all up, and I'd have it from there. I think it's just, it was a great way of getting the calories in. But what I vividly remember is having this shake and then feeling like, oh my God. Number one, I'm overly full because there was so much in a short period of time. And then when I got to about 10, 11 o'clock, I'd hit this huge dip in energy. Massive. To the point where I felt like I had to go and have a sleep right there and then. Wow. And that was something that I was like, this isn't right. It doesn't feel right. Something's not quite kind of gelling here. So I went away and did a little bit of research and realised that, yeah, probably consuming that amount of calories. Now, I'm not saying that all carbs in the morning are bad. I just think be careful about what you consume and the types of quality of carbs you consume. I'm sure Mr. Kellogg's would love us to believe that the best thing in the morning is a nice big bowl of Frosties with sugars and all that kind of stuff on. But we've got to be a little bit better in terms of what you have. And even, I know some people can get away with it and don't mind it, but I even think like bread in the morning is something you want to try and avoid. I know like sourdough now is great. Everyone loves like an avocado and smoked salmon on sourdough, but for most people, it's probably not conducive with fat loss. And we might only be talking 5-10%, but that goes a long way over the space of a good few weeks when you're trying to really get your body in this best possible state of fat loss.
For some reason, a story got triggered in my head then about Kellogg's. Do you know why cornflakes were made?
I do. It's something to do with masturbation, isn't it? Yeah.
Literally. Do you think, oh, right, okay, this is...
Go on, tell me the story, remind me the story.
I'm pretty sure the story is that Captain Kellogg's, whatever his name is, he decided to create a really bland, boring cereal to stop blokes masturbating for something about increased productivity or something silly.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact story, but you're right. It had dubious beginnings, shall we say?
Yeah. Just don't Google Kellogg's wanking. Don't do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what might come up with that, mate.
Yeah, don't. Some sort of cockerel, probably.
Now I know why it's a cockerel.
There you go.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Look, there we go. We figured it out. Should we move on to the next one, mate?
Yes,
it feels like
swift. Anything else you want to add to the kind of carbs before Marbs thing?
No, I think it's understanding I'm a big science nerd, so I quite like the physiology behind it in terms of that's why it'll probably make you look leaner because your muscles, your body's not holding on to as much water, not holding on. So if you want to look your best on the beach, odds are there's some protocols you can tap into there to give that wafer thin skin look. Yeah.
It's literally that. It's like it's you dropping not body fat, just weight off the body, and that weight is in the form of water and glycogen from the muscles. You'll look, for most people who haven't got any muscle mass, the no carbs for Marbs is not a bad way, I guess, of like dropping and looking a little bit leaner. But at some point when you get on holiday, you're going to start consuming carbs. I'll tell you a story, actually. I remember when I went away a few years ago with a mate and we all dieted our asses off for this holiday. And we all got in sick shape and we were out there. It was great. And I think it was literally the moment we walked through the door of our hotel, got in the room, and my mate's nipped down to the shop to get some bits, and he comes back up and he's got a family size pot of yogurt, a huge tub, I'm showing a tub of yogurt, and he's got a Swiss roll. And he just sits there and he dips this huge Swiss roll in the sugar and consumes the whole lot. And then about an hour later, just looks like shit.
Yeah, this six-pack just disappeared.
Yeah, six-pack had disappeared. Glycogen was back in there. Sugar's sky high. Great. Now he's consuming all this alcohol as well alongside it. And he just looked terrible. And I remember thinking, God, all that dieting, and now you just, and for the sake of a Swiss roll. And I mean, the meal itself looked unbelievable. I was a bit jealous when I saw him eating it, but I was like, I want to try and hold my shape while I'm out here. But most people don't think like that. They just think, right, I'm in shape now, I'm going to stay in shape. And 2 or 3 days into the holiday, all the carbs and water's back in, and you kind of, it was a bit pointless doing no carbs before Marbs because it's all just there. So in my eyes, no carbs before Marbs is pointless if you go away and then consume it all in within 24, 48 hours because you're going to be back where you started.
I feel like I've seen this picture of you as well, and to confirm, Ryan did look sick with like a 12-pack, whatever it were.
It was the leanest I've ever been, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. I wouldn't wish that kind of leanness on anyone, though. It was just... I sometimes see people who are that lean all year round, and I go, "How do you do that?"
Yeah, you can't be happy.
You can.
It depends.
I think there's 3 camps Camp 1 is my camp. Did it for a short period of time, felt horrendous. Got some nice photos, but probably wouldn't want to go that down there again. Camp 2 is its genetics. They look absolutely unbelievable all year round. They just generally sit really well at like low percentages of body fat. And Camp 3 is, performance enhancing drugs basically, which definitely play a role in staying lean.
100%. So you mentioned about like body composition there. I've got two things here, which one of them is really inspired by a family discussion, or every family discussion that any PT has ever had at a family meal, which is, will lifting weights make me bulky?
Will lifting weights make me bulky? I think it's the classic thing, isn't it? There's so many memes out there now of like women lifting weights and then that speech bubble of like, I don't want to look like this. And in the speech bubble is like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like with his rippling chest and shoulders and arms. It's genetically impossible for people to overnight just start looking too bulky. It doesn't happen. The way it happens is you start lifting weights, and then when you reach your stop and you're pretty good with how you look and your muscle mass is fine, great, you just taper back on the train a little bit, change things up. It fascinates me how people think that they will just sometimes, wake up and look ridiculous. If it was that easy, mate, God, I would have looked great a long time ago.
This is it. And it's funny, actually, because we watched Gladiators at the weekend. Shout out to Bronte as well. Just on the TV. And we were feeling nostalgic. So we YouTubed one of the old episodes, and it was John Fashanu, Ulrika Johnson, who were presenting it. And when they were presenting the Gladiators, even the terminology that they used back then, like they were talking about Jet, his actually maintains a 32 whatever waist sort of physique, and it were all about like measurements. And I'm like, even back then, and there's kids who were watching it, or maybe adults who were watching it, who that's what they absorbed. So us trying to say, oh no, it don't matter, like don't worry about these measurements, or I'm not going to look like a gladiator if you're good at gym 3 times a week. Like, it's a lot of hard work and genetics to actually look like that.
I like the fact that they discuss that on TV as well, like what they eat, and gives you an idea into, how to look like that. But I'm about to break a lot of bubbles here, but back in the 90s when it was on?
Yeah.
They were all on gear, by the way. Even the women. Every single one of those gladiators on gear. And break another bubble, most of the gladiators in today's show are on gear. They're all on steroids. One guy literally got popped this past week. Do you see it?
Oh, no.
There was a black guy on there. I can't remember what his name is now, but he has had to pull out the show because it came out that he was on steroids.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
it came out. I mean, anyone who knows about steroids and what it looks like is like, yeah, of course, clearly. But for the average person, they just think, oh, he just trains really hard and he's got a great physique. But it's quite obvious to kind of spot.
I think it's a hard one because I've been like detached from this world for a long time. Like I've always been in the, functional fitness, sport sort of world where literally drugs aren't even discussed. So like I feel very much like deer in the headlights with this stuff, because if there's telltale signs, I don't really know what they are, because I've sort of been detached from maybe the bodybuilding world or, the high-end sports world for a long time. So it's a hard one. I don't really know what to look for with a lot of these things. Yeah.
It's interesting because you said it wasn't discussed. But I guarantee people are partaking. Anywhere where there's a sport and people want to be better, and especially when there's a monetary value to it,
I'm glad you said that.
A status thing to it, there'll always be performance-enhancing drugs.
And you almost have to think, if you get paid for how you perform or how you look, there must be that temptation.
Oh, of course.
There must be, especially to be at the top of your game.
Some sports, it's part of the pay to play. Like, think about cycling when what's his face got popped.
Lance Armstrong.
Yeah. They did studies on all, like, there was one race because they had all the blood, like, all the kind of urine samples, and some of they were getting away with a few things. Some of the tests weren't good enough to kind of detect things. So they went through all these samples from like 10 years ago. Guess how many times down the ranking they had to go, what position, before someone was drug-free in those urine tests.
Wow, okay. I wouldn't even want to guess. I don't want to say like half of the field. It can't be half the field.
Well, I think there's about 50-odd people in the race. 14th.
Wow, that is
14th.
That is mega. So it eliminates like, what, 25% of competition? They're about...
They got down to 14th before they found someone with a urine sample that didn't have performance-enhancing drugs and all signs of it from the updated tests.
I feel like that's going to be a fascinating discussion. I feel like that's definitely going to be a standalone pod. Just like what we know about it or why people do it? What's the motivation?
My knowledge of it, honestly, we talk about it a little bit on the podcast, but it's actually very like surface level. I don't know a massive amount about it. I do really want to do a podcast on it though, and we've mentioned it before, getting someone on who's an expert in this field and they can just discuss it with us.
If anyone
there is a guy I'm thinking of, I'll mention his name off podcast. He's a bit of a controversial guy, but his whole life he's talking about this. Goes on the country giving talks on it. So cool. He's quite a high profile person. Whether it's someone we can get on, I don't know. But I'll discuss it with you. Maybe we can
ask the question.
Yeah,
but no, I mean to answer the question of does lifting weights make you bulky? It will in conjunction with a big calorie surplus. But then that's probably when you're building muscle and you're gaining body fat. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a phase. It's a phase. You know, if you're going through a phase or maybe you want a nice sculpted physique, odds are, if you look at someone who maybe you think, they're looking good, Nick, they've probably been in that surplus before, built some muscle and then dieted down again. So they've kept a hold of the muscle, dropped off the body fat after that, and they've gone through phases. It's not just, they don't pick up weights and all of a sudden get really bulky. Like, I'll say it now, certain people are, you mentioned a client of yours who's very almost predisposed to like big, strong guy, like can build muscle really quick. Some people are like that. I'm not one of them people. I'm very athletically minded. I'm probably find it easy to stay lean. Whereas there's other people who, it's a big battle to stay lean. Naturally, their body wants to hold on to body fat to, you know, send that strength signal more of the time, just because it's maybe what they predisposed to. So yeah, it's a big box to open, but yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of it comes down to calorie surplus. What you'll normally realise if you speak to people who are what you would class as bulkies, they've probably been bigger at some point as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think about some guys you see on the high rocks circuit now when you go around, and some guys carry phenomenal amounts of muscle. Don't get me wrong, they're maybe not moving around as quick as some of the kind of leaner guys and the guys who are runners, but they've probably been at some point massive, like really big. You get a lot of people who cross over from the bodybuilding world now into more of this functional side, high rock stuff. And there's almost like sometimes an expectation to look that way. Like if you look at the Elite 15 guys and girls, they've all got phenomenal amounts of muscle on them, but they probably all dabbled in like a bit of bodybuilding. They probably dabbled in a little bit of Olympic lifting, maybe a lot of them come up crossover from CrossFit as well, because there's obviously a big link there. So they've had a foundation of building this physique. And I think that's what's hard for a lot of people to grasp. I saw a great YouTube video about this the other day where it was a guy that he was getting great times, like sub 110s, but he didn't look great at all. And let me rephrase that. He looked in shape. He's in shape, but he wasn't what you would expect from someone who was getting his times. Like he didn't have a massive amount of muscle mass. He was really fast, ran his whole life, and now he's learned to do these exercises very specifically as good events. And he was like, I feel like I look out of shape, or out of place sometimes, and I'm not as in the best shape as I could be. I know my performances are getting better, but he goes, if I wanted to get to the level where I look like those guys, I'd have to completely change my program. I wouldn't then be training for performance. I'd then be training for looks and aesthetics. And I think my goal now is to be a little bit of both. I want a little bit of performance, and I would like to kind of stay in relatively good nick. I think it's balancing the books of staying where you want to mentally, physically, having that confidence in yourself, but also knowing that you can perform pretty well. And the bulk, kind of linking that back to the bulky side of things. If you wanted to lift weights and you're asking the question, am I going to get too bulky? You obviously want to change your shape. That's the kind of root of the question, isn't it? You want to change the way you look, but you don't want to end up looking too big and too masculine. It's normally, I would say, a girl that asks this kind of question. But that's, again, it's just not genetically possible. Women don't genetically build muscle as fast as men do. And wait till you get to your stop. This is what I say to every single person who comes and asks me this question. I say, we're going to go hell for leather on getting as much muscle on your body as possible. We don't want to prolong the process. Let's do everything we can to build as much muscle in a short period of time. Why not? And at any point you get to the point where you're like, I'm done. Perfect. We have that conversation, we get off of that stop, and we change everything. That's exactly how you should approach it. Don't let the idea of getting too bulky affect how you train, how hard you train, how much weight you lift. That is completely the wrong approach.
I'm training someone at the moment she's taken to, I've tried to come away from that terminology of bulk just from her past experience, but we're calling it like the reverse, the building process. And she's basically gradually stepping up her calories. And this is someone who used to live, no joke, 1,000 calories a day just to sort of maintain. She's quite a petite lady. And she's currently on about 2,200 calories for someone who's 4'11", has quite a sedentary job, but she's training hard. Her numbers are absolutely incredible. She's retained a really good amount of muscle. And we know that when we transition and we drop into a deficit, her threshold that she'll have to go to is so much higher than what it used to be. So she'll still be able to live. We could probably get her to 1,700 calories and she'd still drop body fat. But because she's now got that muscle mass on her, I've said it before and I'll say it again, but muscle's expensive tissue. That's, in a modern world, you want to be there. You don't want to live in 800-900 calories all your life, because it's not optimal by any stretch. The adverse health risks on that are going to be massive. So it's a tough one mentally to break down, but physically it makes complete sense.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I do love that terminology. Muscle is expensive. But the more muscle mass you have on you, generally the more calories you can get away with eating.
Exactly.
Metabolism generally tends to be better because your body has these things that are burning quite frequently, burn energy quite frequently. So yeah, muscle is something you want on your body. And the only people I think that should maybe slightly be concerned about being too bulky is people who come to you and, maybe they have got like a bigger structure, like they are just generally wider in the shoulders, they've got wider hips. They know they're quite stocky as it is. And you get a lot of girls in this category as well. And they're worried that if they lift weights, they will get stockier. And there's a definite risk for that.
Yeah.
But if you're of a slim build, average build, I wouldn't be too worried about getting into that category.
No, not all. A couple of other, I suppose, myths to bust for me is what determines a good session. And I've put here, sweat doesn't equal a good session.
Right.
And soreness doesn't equal a good session. And I think there's a lot of people who think they have to go to the gym and they have to sweat. And the next day they have to be sore. That's the only metric that they've got for saying, is that a good session? You got any thoughts on this before I start ranting?
I want to tell you a little story before you start ranting. When you mentioned the word sauna, I've got an interesting story for you. And it kind of ties into the same thing about burning energy and calories, because people think that, you sweat out body fat, basically. You can sweat fat out your pores. You can. And I remember when I heard this as like a teenager, my dad had a really good home gym setup. So I was doing this I was literally running on the treadmill for 2 hours. I was training for my football. I'd go in there and do a few weights. In that same gym, he also had a little mini sauna in the corner.
Okay.
And I heard this, I think I read it in a magazine somewhere, that if you sit in the sauna, you sweat out body fat. I was like, fucking hell, why am I on a treadmill for 2 hours? I'm just going to sit in that sauna. I would just sit in the sauna for 2 hours.
Nice.
And I completely changed my program overnight. And I was sweating, and I didn't feel the benefits of it. And maybe I maintained my level of leanness, but I definitely started to feel different. I wasn't performing as well. And I knocked it on the head, but I would just fall into that camp of, sweating equals I'm losing body fat. You're much more efficient at burning body fat when you burn it and you move and you exercise by that process rather than sweating it out.
100%. And sweating, for me, is overheating. That's all it is. It's your body's way of trying to cool yourself down. That is all it is. It's a byproduct of temperature, of whether that's internally or externally. You go and train on holiday, odds are you're gonna sweat your tits off, basically. Whereas the sauna side of things, this is probably my biggest bugbear, because working with PTs in the past and qualifying the next generation, you hear it a lot even now, that they wear it like a badge of honor. There's people who they might get a message from the client saying, what have you done? I can't walk downstairs, and they're laughing away at it. And you think, what is that person's goal? Is that person's goal to get a certain step goal in the next day? Are they supposed to train today? Because they can't now. And all soreness is, in my eyes, is there's a melting pot for soreness, which is basically novelty, intensity, and volume. And for most people, they overdo it on all three. They choose really novel exercises, they go too intense, they go too hard with it, and then they probably do too many reps and the volume's absolutely massive. Don't expect to walk the next day. Don't expect to be able to take your bra off, wash your hair, whatever. It's just that melting pot. And I say this from someone who comes from a functional training background, if you like, a lot of class-based stuff. it's very easy to get carried away in that situation, and it's a hard one to combat, because if someone wants to work hard and they want to go to the gym and feel like they've worked hard, the soreness is an indicator, the sweating is an indicator, but the signal's probably the most important thing. The consistency is probably the most important thing. So it's just knowing that it doesn't equal a good session.
The body requires very little stimulus to grow when you first start going to the gym. And especially in the lower body more so than the upper body. I get clients regularly who come and they'll do a set of 3 bodyweight squats at 10 reps, and they're literally hobbling back to the car. And I'm like, God, my legs haven't been like that for ages. For someone who hasn't trained for a good few years, just do 30 bodyweight squats and let me know in the morning how you're feeling. Some people are really struggling to get up and downstairs from 30 bodyweight squats. And then fast forward 3 months, and they're doing all sorts of fancy, complex things in the gym with obviously weights involved, machinery. Upper body tends not to be as debilitating. I find that legs is something that we use a lot more on a daily basis when we're getting up and off the sofa, walking around. It's our kind of movement strategy, isn't it? But I think that generally, you're right, you don't need to feel amazingly sore to get a good workout. If you look at, like, for example, strength athletes, Olympic lifters, power lifters, they're not really taking their body to failure, but they're still growing muscle. Of course they are.
Think of farmers. Farmers are super strong. Farmers are, most farmers, they've got this incredible grip strength, and they're not really trained to failure. They're just doing it for 16 hours a day, small and often. And they get this constant signal that essentially, initially, it's what you call a nervous system response, where your body has to respond to it. Whereas over time, you might need some more fuel and you might need some building blocks, aka excess calories, to start building on that. But yeah, I like what you said about the 30 bodyweight squats being the workout, and then a couple of months down the line, that's probably their warm up, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's nice. It is nice to see that in their mind as the level of progression they've come along.
One of my absolute staples in my service is if someone's had a in-person session with me, I'll message them the next day to be like, how are you feeling? Is there any soreness? If they can pinpoint, oh yeah, my hamstrings are really sore, that to me says, okay, we might even be able to scale that back a little bit because we've overreached a little bit there. And that's not me being all namby-pamby and pampering after him. But then I ask the question, could you train today? And if they say yeah, wicked. If they say no, we know we've probably overdone it. Because the people who I typically work with and you typically work with, they're real people.
Yeah.
These aren't people who, this is not their life. They've got other interests. They've got other, they've got families. They've got hobbies.
Yeah.
We don't want to interfere with that.
Reminds me of the guy I'm coaching at the moment who we've just kind of, he's one of these guys I call a sleeping giant who came into the program and you could tell straight away he was someone that had a great physique, just underneath a little bit of body fat, but he'd never really been to the gym, just got really good genetics. You could tell it straight away as soon as he took his top off. And by the way, I'm not requesting he takes his top off his sessions. Got to do this topless, mate.
Welcome. Take top off.
We do a lot like progress photos, so we could tell from the progress photos. But he comes in and same thing, 30 bodyweight squats, feeling it. Then he gets into kind of some of the more main compound lifts, start going through those, really enjoying the training. And then we've had a conversation this week where it's like, Ryan, I'm really not enjoying what we're currently doing. And the reason that's happened is because we changed his program from like quite strength-based single set exercises to now going into a bit of a hypertrophy push. We wanted to kind of build some more muscle, get his shoulders popping a bit more, get the arms and chest all kind of looking a bit more 3D. So we're exploring some new things. We're exploring everything from drop sets, trisets, we're doing supersets, we're doing German volume training, gyronda. We're trying so many different things. And 4 or 5 weeks down the line now, after trying a different one each week, he's really sore. He's not recovering as well. He's not looking forward to going to the gym because he knows when he gets there, it's a bit of a mental battle now because he knows what he's letting himself in for, not only in the session, but those next few days afterwards. And so we're like, right, perfect. This is a great time to mix things up a little bit now. And number one, it's about being honest with the person you're being coached by, being honest with yourself about how well you're enjoying the sessions. And you're not going to enjoy training if you're super sore all the time. You're just not. So we have to take things back now and go for a bit of a next training block of maybe another 6 weeks of just the single set stuff. Then we have another push on the hypertrophy.
For context as well, me and Ryan still mess this up. Like personally, last Wednesday, I'm really into split squats at the minute. I love anything single leg, single arm. That's probably how I got into strength training and resistance training, to sort of help with sport. So anytime I can revisit it, I will. And I started doing some safety bar Bulgarian split squats, which great setup. Like the way that I've got it set up at station, back foot on like a spongy box, safety bar on my back, use the balance if I need to. It's great, but all I did was add on an extra 10 kilos to what I normally do. Same rep range, same sort of setup, same number of sets, everything. Mate, I was so sore. Just like that extra 10 kilos every single rep. Mate, I was struggling.
It's a brilliant setup that you put on your story, didn't you? I do love that. I saw it and thought, I need to try that.
It's great. Like, I love things like the safety bar. Like it wasn't too novel, but it were novel enough to let me overload it a little bit more. So,
but if anyone doesn't know what the safety bar is, it's basically like a normal bar that goes across your back. It kind of drops down either side, doesn't it? It's like cambered, they call it.
Yeah.
And then around your neck, there's 2 bars that come out forward. So what happens is you don't actually have to hold the bar for it to stay secure.
No.
You've got these things, you've got the bar across your back, these bars coming down over your chest in front. And so it sits in like a little V shape on your body, which allows you to put your arms on the rack, stabilize yourself a bit more. And you don't then have to worry about stabilizing, because one of the biggest things with the Bulgarian split squat is stabilization. If you've got a rack in front of you and you've got your arms up holding the 2 pillars, you can then just focus purely on strength and drive. There's no stability. Not saying that the stability is not a big component of it. It is for most beginners. But when you get to a certain point and you want to get new numbers on there and reach for bigger strength, that's a fantastic variation. I can't recommend that highly enough.
it's a shit name for a bar.
A what?
Safety bar. It needs a better name.
Yeah,
it's a crap
with
name.
that.
I don't know, it's a crap name. We need a better name for that.
Yeah.
So if you got any suggestions, just let us know.
There is one called a spider bar. Have you heard of that? It's
I'd take that, mate. I'm sold. I don't care what it
It
is.
looks very similar. I think the only difference is the cambered bits at the end drop down a bit lower. I'm sure that's what it is. And maybe there's something else to it, but it looks very similar to a safety bar squat.
A bit of a side note, have you played around with a bamboo bar before?
Yes, the bamboo bar is the one that's like wobbly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really wobbly. Yeah.
Yeah. I went on one at a gym down south a couple of years ago. Did some benching with it. Oh my days. Like
What people do is I saw a guy with a bamboo bar and then they put bands over the end and hang plates from bands over the ends. It's like double the amount of like
Horrible
instability. Is it also called an elephant bar? Or is that something else?
Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like it might be called an elephant bar as well. Maybe that's what I've seen online. Yeah.
Right. I feel like I'm gonna start a petition to rename the safety bar. I've decided.
What are you going to rename it?
I don't know. There's got to be a cooler name, like something with like 2 horns. There's got to be. I don't know. There's got to be something. Bison bar.
The bison bar.
That sounds sick.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
That's way better than the safety bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'll leave it with me.
Yeah.
See what I can do. I'll see how far my influence
Let's get it
spreads.
in government discussed.
The other one that I've put here, mate, from a myth busting point of view, is another nutrition one, which is fats make you fat. Now,
Fats make you fat.
Fats make you fat. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories.
Yeah.
So some bright spark in 80s and 90s decided, if we just make everything low fat, we'll reduce the calories of stuff, which sounds a good idea in principle, doesn't it?
And that's compared to carbs and proteins, which are 4 calories per gram. So it's over double the amount of calories per gram.
What these bright sparks didn't realise is the importance of fat in our body from a hormonal level, from a mood response, from a immune system perspective. So I still work with people now who are on a ridiculously low number of fats because they have low fat everything to keep the calories down.
Are these people of a certain age?
Some are. Other ones are maybe they've got the hang-ups around numbers. But yeah, there's a few people who go, I've got my low-fat Greek yogurt and I've got this, I've got that. And then when you have these chats at like family barbecues or whatever, and people say, well, yeah, but I've got my low-fat stuff in. And when you tell them, actually, you'd probably be better just sticking to the full-fat stuff, that blows their mind. Because they go, well, that's more calories. What do you mean? But it's like, well, the more whole food, the better. Let's face it.
Yeah.
And these low-fat stuff, you have to ask, like, well, what is it then? What have you put in there instead?
Normally, sugars.
Yep.
Carbs.
Yep.
Which are only going to spike insulin, again, make your blood sugars spike and ultimately cause more fat gain. So I tend to only get this issue with people over the age of 40.
Okay.
I know that because there was a big push within that decade. I think it was like 85 to 95, I think it was, where there was a big push on like low fat is the main way. It might even have been earlier than that. But I got a woman I'm coaching at the moment who's just come on, and she's been setting her ways for quite a while against retraining that thinking around fats. And the biggest barrier we have is this fats in the morning, which is one of my strategies to kind of make people a bit more fat adapted. And she's like, I can't have fats first thing, surely not. So she would be having like a granola, and she'd be having all these other bits, you know, maybe some toast in there. I'm like, massive handful of nuts, peanut butter, avocados. I'm even okay with a little bit of like meats and fishes in the morning. And she's really struggling to get her head around that. But it'll go, you know, those habits die hard.
100%. At the risk of sounding like a pleb, I'm gonna quote myself. I put something on. I really like Threads for this reason. It's like Twitter, but not as toxic.
Get your ideas out.
And I honestly think that these myths are beliefs. Like, a lot of people have these beliefs, and all beliefs are theories. Yes, I am reading this. Beliefs are theories. Actions are experiments. Emotions are feedback. And I sort of went on to talk about like life is a science, and the main objective is growth. And if what you're doing isn't working, and it's making you miserable, maybe you're not liking doing it, that experiment's failed. Like, that's not what you want to be doing all your life. You probably do want to be going down to, okay, is this helping you grow in the way that you want? If it's not, change it, get some new beliefs, because your current beliefs aren't working.
It's amazing how many people get caught in that cycle of like, they'll maybe see some partial results from something and then they'll plateau. And they don't pivot and move and try and find something different. They'll just stick with that same strategy. The main reason they do that is because they're worried if they change it, they'll go back to square one.
Yeah.
Whereas actually they need to change it and actually get to square two now, because they're already at square one. And I think that, yeah, you're absolutely right. You need to go back, analyse, reassess, why am I not progressing? Is it my nutrition? Is it my training? What in my kind of makeup and structure and habit system isn't making me hit those targets? And I think for a lot of people, not enough analysing going on.
If you're going back to something, it's probably not worked because it's took you back to square one, but it's just took a while. And that's a hard thing. That's a hard paradigm to get people to understand, because it's like, and again, I'm sorry to criticise these guys again, but Weight Watchers, Slimming World, if you go back to it because it worked for you in the past, it's not really worked, has it? Because you've gone back to it. You're back at square one. And that's a harsh thing to say. And you almost have to think, I get that you like the community, I get that you like the accountability, but you can get community and accountability from other things, not necessarily a system that doesn't work for you.
It's a fantastic point, that. It's one of the best I think you brought up on this podcast, about how people are convinced that certain things work for them when they don't actually work for them.
Might work in short term. Yeah, I get that.
I get this a lot with intermittent fasting. People come to me and go, oh, I dropped loads of weight doing intermittent fasting. Are you still doing it? No. Are you still in shape? No, I put all the weight back on. But it does work for me. You've got to reframe that. It doesn't work if it isn't lasting long term. Find something that you can do forever. That's the kind of the ethos that I want to set in all my clients, is finding a way of eating that you can do for the rest of your life. I think, yes, there's short-term benefits from a lot of these different diets, keto, intermittent fasting, even things like, what is the there's
carnivore stuff.
Carnivore is what I'm after. Yeah, that's right. A lot of these fad diets that are around at the moment, you're going to see short-term results. But again, it all comes down to cutting out food groups. It all comes down to massive calorie restriction. All things which in the long run just aren't set up for a sustainable way of living.
Exactly. Ryan, can you turn fat into muscle?
Can you turn fat into muscle? Physiologically, no. Science has proven that fat molecules do not turn into muscle molecules.
I just think that, for me, is like, I'm going to say that's number one. When somebody who's always maybe a bigger build and they approach you and you say, well, I just want to turn my fat into muscle. And it's like, I get what you're saying, but you almost need to become a different person to do that. Like, you think about what body fat is. It's excess energy that your body is storing. It is literally storage. That's like, that's your loft, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to actually strip that down a little bit and not just go back to skin and bones, you've probably got to maintain some muscle. That's going to involve you hitting a certain protein target. That is going to involve you lifting weights to maintain your muscle. Because all your muscle's doing in some sort of deficit it is resisting decline. And that's we'll say that again. Your muscle is resisting decline when you're in a deficit. And a lot of people who see scale weight drop, they'll probably see a drop in muscle as well. And that can be tough. That was my biggest concern when Ozempic and all these other GLP-1s come in, that we were just going to see a heavily under-muscled population.
I think the effects of that are still to come, 'cause it's still an up-and-coming thing. You know, it's making its way into the mainstream and people are talking about it more, people are taking it more. But I think there'll be some big studies on muscle wastage with those things. Where do you think that phrase came from, like turning fat into muscle?
Bros, probably.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon it started in the kind of the gyms?
I feel like everything starts with bros.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's I love comedians for this reason, because comedians are very observant. So maybe it's just a movement of people, probably similar to people who latch onto fashion. I always think, who starts fashions?
Yeah.
Who starts fashions?
I think it came from a very simple and basic start. I think people just looked at the body, looked at the belly, and went, "That's all fat. I want to turn that into muscle." And when they lose the body, when they lose the body fat, oh, that body fat's turned into muscle now. I think it's as simple as that. And they look at their arms, and they've got a lot of sagging from the body fat. And then when they lose that body fat, now that muscle's there. Oh, that fat must have turned into muscle. I think it's as simple as that.
Just a simple observation, isn't it? Yeah. They probably don't see those sort of literal scales changing, if you know what I mean, where it's like body fat comes down, muscle mass is going up, there's a changeover, muscles become more visible, body fat not as much, and then you get,
I think a lot more people are clued up nowadays with the amount of information out there on that. But you do get the occasional person who you speak to who's just, not in our world, and they go, I'm on this diet now, can't wait until this fat turns into muscle.
I think that's what I love about talking to the general public, because I've said it before, I feel like we do live in a bubble sometimes. A lot of my friendship group are into the fitness, and then when you do speak to someone who's not, and they do think you're a little bit of a weirdo for putting yourself through pain, and you try and...
I've had that title for 20 years now, mate, when I've been training.
The pain man.
The weirdo. The weirdo.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting where you see what people with, in my opinion, like, I don't want to say proper jobs, but do you know what I mean? Like real world, like really hardcore jobs, like they're in finance, they're responsible for loads of people. And I just find the thoughts interesting. Shane Nugent actually speaks about it really well, where he says there's people who've been on this earth for 30, 40, 50 years, and they've never thought what they are putting into their body in the form of food. They've just never thought about it.
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
It's wild because we talk about it all the time, but that's why we're here. It's literally why the podcast is this, because we want to reach those people and get that information out there. And there's people that are hungry for this information as well. They want to learn. Even the people who we coach, they come to us with all sorts of jobs and industries. And as soon as you start educating them on this stuff, it's amazing how the eyes widen and go, oh God, I've been doing this for so long. I've been doing this for so long. I didn't know that was right. And I've mentioned it before, I'll say it again. People hold on to the most minuscule pieces of information as like the Bible. Sometimes they'll read in an article about some guy who said that, like I said, fat turns into muscle, and all of a sudden that's what they think it is. Or they read that there's no carbs before Marbs, and that's the best way to get in shape for a holiday. And people do it. They live by those mantras.
True. Have you got any other myths that jump up for you? Maybe it's something a client's recently said to you.
Myths, that's a good one. Anything off the top of my head that I can think of? To be honest with you, when you said gym must, I'll start that one again. Take those testicles out of my mouth. When you said myth busting for the gym, I thought you were going to do in the gym. So things that we see in the gym a bit. So maybe, I don't know, maybe some exercises that like a little bit, have some myths around them. Anything off the top of your head?
Because sometimes you see it with these influencers, like if your biceps aren't growing, try this. And it's some sort of Zotman curl where they turn up and then rotate. Yeah. Again, novelty. The youth of today, maybe. There's
a lot of that out there now, like quick, short, 30-second videos on like just mamby-pamby exercises, and there's actually a big trend of like slating exercises as well. I saw this video where like the Arnold press was getting loads of shit.
Yeah,
everyone was getting on the Arnold press and saying it's shocking, it's terrible. You won't build much muscle doing it. A lot of people saying you won't get strong, but look at why it was invented. It wasn't invented to get strong through. It was invented just to kind of be a variation of and put the muscle under a bit more stimulus by altering the position shoulder joint as you do the exercise. And I just can't get on board with that. I think there's a lot of like, one person puts out a post, does really well, and all of a sudden everyone starts chiming in. And you get that a lot in our industry where it's a bit like a wildfire. One person with a little bit of an audience has a post about an Arnold press not being great, explains it in a very cohesive way that everyone understands, and every other coach goes, oh, that's brilliant, it got loads of views, I'm going to mimic that and do my own version of it. And all of a sudden the Arnold press gets written off as this terrible exercise.
I've got a contact who lives in Plymouth, and I'll shout him out. He's probably not going to expect this shout out. It's called Lewis Kennedy, and he's got a company called Lemon Frog Fitness.
Lemon Frog Fitness.
I have no idea why he's called it that, but it's very memorable, and he's great. He's
Lemon Frog. Is the Lemon Frog known for anything?
No idea. I'm going to ask him actually. I think he's travelling at the minute, but I'll ping him a
Is
message.
the Lemon Frog explosive?
Maybe.
Does the Lemon Frog have good glutes?
Potentially. These are all the questions I'm going to pose to Lewis. But he is a brilliant guy, and he will openly call out people who are, quite frankly, selling crap. So as far as myths that need busting, Lewis is a very, very smart guy. He works with these people who maybe they are perimenopausal, maybe that, and that's who he specialises with. Admittedly, he has said it looks a bit like Andrew Tate, so he does get a lot of hate online. Yeah,
oh wow!
But he's a cracking lad. Really knows his stuff, and
Andrew Tate looking like that's a Lemon Frog Fitness. Lemon Frog. What's it got?
Lemon Frog Fitness. Yeah,
has a business called Lemon Frog Fitness. I like the guy, isn't he?
He's got a nice Porsche as well, mate.
Has he?
Yeah, he's a good lad.
Fantastic.
Yeah, good lad. Good lad. But the point I was trying to make, now that I've given Lewis a big eulogy, he will regularly call out people for like, if you can, like, for example, do a lunge, do a bicep curl, and do a shoulder press with that same weight, and that influencer with a banging body is selling you that plan, it's full of shit.
Yeah.
He's like, they have not built their body doing what they are selling you. It is disingenuous. They are jumping on a hype. Don't believe them.
Yeah.
And I feel like he needs more of a platform, Lewis, because he's gathering quite a big audience, and I just like who he is. I like his message.
Yeah.
I like how he's not just laying into people for the sake of it, for clicks. He's being like, no, this is damaging. Stop it.
I think that those people are growing as well, but those people don't grow as quickly as the people who are just really like ruthless with the content. And oh god, I feel like we have a portion of every episode that's about what the hell's going on in the online world. Be careful who you follow, and maybe we'll have to do another shout out to some good coaches. But this guy sounds good. Lemon Frog Fitness.
Lemon Frog Fitness. This guy called Lewis Kennedy. He's cracking.
Okay,
he's great.
Cool.
He's great. Any closing comments from you, mate, about myths that need busting?
No, I'm trying to think of anything else that's off the top of my head, but no, I think that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to?
Just to tell people that if you want some myths busting, who are you going to call?
Oh god, here he is, dad joke special.
Mythbusters. You're going to call us, mate.
Love that.
I can see the icon now. I can see the thumbnail.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, you have actually put the idea in my mind.
Fair.
The YouTube thumbnail is definitely going to be Ghostbusters, but with us in the middle. Maybe with some guns.
Yeah, I need a gun.
Yeah.
Right, speaking of which,
I'll just superimpose our face onto...
You are a superimpose master, by the way. For anyone who's not seen Ryan's post from yesterday. That was insane. Like, I'm not even going to...
Did it look real or not?
I mean, no, but because I know you. But it looked amazing.
I couldn't work out whether it actually looked all right or not, but because I spent so much time editing it, but I just basically superimposed my face onto a heavily overweight person, and this caption was, if I had to start over, this is what I'd do. And I thought it was just quite a good, striking image of me not looking my best.
It made me happy because I thought, right, this is the only time that looked better than Ryan Dutton. So it did make me happy. But no, honestly, thank you for everyone who's listened, watched. If you're enjoying the show, please go ahead, like, subscribe, share it, and reach out to us if you've got any more myths that you want busting. If you've heard any crap that you want us to dive into, let us know.
We'll do a myth busting part 2 if we get enough questions. And
Mythbusters.
Maybe we can conjure up some other ones as well. I'm sure there's loads out there. We'll do another episode. Part 2.
I just want people to think like, right, there's something I don't understand. Who are they going to call, Ryan? Mythbusters.
I'm not saying it, mate. I'm not getting caught into this.
I'll do it. Call us, please.
Guys, thank you for joining us on the MythBusted podcast. We'll see you next one.
See you soon.
Cheers, mate. Awesome.
Thank you.